Have you been praying and you still have no answers? Have you been pouring out your heart for so many years? Have you been hoping that things would have changed by now? Have you cried all the faith you have through so many tears? Don't forget the things that He has done before, and remember He can do it all once more. It's like the brightest sunrise waiting on the other side of the darkest night. Don't ever lose hope. Hold on and believe. Maybe you just haven't seen it. Just haven't seen it yet. You're closer than you think you are. Only moments from the break of dawn. All His promises are just up ahead. Maybe you just haven't seen it. Just haven't seen it yet. Maybe you just haven't seen it.
Hi, well, good afternoon, everyone. We're just waiting for a few more people to join us.
He had the solution before you had the problem. He sees the best in you when you feel at your worst. So in the questioning, don't ever doubt His love for you, 'cause it's only in His love that you find a breakthrough. Oh, it's like the brightest sunrise waiting on the other side of the darkest night. Don't ever lose hope. Hold on and believe. Maybe you just haven't seen it. Just haven't seen it.
Great. Well, it's lovely to have you all with us this afternoon. It's afternoon in Cape Town, where we are as a secretariat, and it's lovely to see some old friends of Micah, and it's lovely to see new friends of Micah as we all gather here to hear from Thandi Gamedze about how to find our voices. I must say, as I started on the screen there, I felt I didn't have my voice. I wasn't sure when to use it, whether I had to wait for someone to give me permission or to just jump in and start talking. So I think even for me, right from the get-go, I know I've got a lot to learn about finding my voice. But it's lovely to have you here. I'm Deborah Hancox, and I'm the International Coordinator of Micah Global, based in Cape Town, South Africa. And we're really excited to be hosting Thandi today, who's going to be equipping all of us in terms of finding a voice about the things that we're passionate about and that are important to us. Just by way of introduction, for those of you who are new to Micah Global, Micah Global is an international network for Christians involved in relief, development, care, and advocacy. And we've been in existence for 20 years, and we have approximately 420 members and an additional 146 individual members, so organizational and individual members. And we really exist to see God's kingdom come on earth, His integral mission fulfilled through the participation of His people, and so that we can reduce suffering and conflict in the world. One of the reasons why we join together is for solidarity, learning, and action. And today is a wonderful example of learning together. And I'm hoping that this learning together will lead to greater solidarity and advocacy action into the future. You can find out more about Micah Global on our website, micahglobal.org. In terms of the consultation that's coming up in September, the Krishamiri or Flourish consultation, it's a global consultation. We meet every 3 years, and this time, because of COVID, we're meeting online. So we're all a little bit sad that we won't be able to hug each other and share meals and sit up late at night and share ideas. But we do believe that the Lord is inviting us into this digital space as a network. And so we're excited to embrace it and to learn together as the way of the future. And part of what we do at our consultations is we have these things called M.Phatics that Linda will talk a little bit more about. But I think it's going to be one of the most exciting contributions we have in this online space, and something which is available to anyone. And not only the members, but even the people in communities that we're working with can find and have a voice through the M.Phatics. So I'm going to hand over to our communications coordinator, Linda Martindale. Linda, was there anything else I should have said? If so, please, won't you go ahead and say it?
That was perfect. Thanks, Deborah, and welcome everyone. So great to be doing this. Historically, as Deborah said, we would gather together every 3 years, and one of the things that was part of the program was these 10-minute short talks called M.Phatics. And it was obviously limited to how many people could actually present because of time. The great thing about this being online is that anybody who's registered who wants to do a short talk can do it. We've got a center on the Hoover app, which is the consultation is going to be all managed through this wonderful application that you can use on your phone or your desktop. And the talks will be on there for anyone to listen to at any time. So M.Phatics are talks to inspire, challenge, and change us. And I often think that I go back to that 1 Corinthians scripture that talks about one body, many parts. And I think that we each have something different on our heart. There's always something that I notice, that Thandi notices something different, and Janet notices something different. And then God does this beautiful mosaic of us all together sharing what's on his heart as a body. And so one of the things that I've been privileged is working with Thandi at a local NGO. I've also been able to witness her beautiful multi-skilled creativity, her prophetic voice. And one thing I know about Thandi is that she has a heart to see the world look different and more like Jesus wants it to look. And so we are so overjoyed to have Thandi help us practically. I went to a workshop or a whole set of talks that Thandi was part of, with these young people had prepared these 10-minute talks that were absolutely brilliant, and she was part of upskilling them to do that. So I'm excited that she's going to be able to upskill us today. Over to you, Thandi.
Thank you so much, Linda, and thanks, Deborah. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be doing this today. I think because I feel so passionate about exactly what Deborah and Linda have been saying, that everyone has something to say, something that they're passionate about, a unique way of seeing the world and expressing what they're saying. And so I think it's really a gift when we do the work of actually maybe thinking deeper about that, and then do the work of articulating that so that other people can be invited into that perspective and into seeing things a bit differently, hopefully. So what we're hoping to achieve in this session is I'm hoping that you've all come with a topic that you would like to explore further and to develop a talk on. If you haven't thought about that yet, then hopefully you will get a chance to do that. But to get you thinking about that topic and to give you some tools to deepen your thinking around that, to ask some more questions around that, and as well as some tools to help you to articulate and to present that in a way that you can get that message across to people. So we're going to spend a bit of time. You'll get to know a couple of different people in a group that we'll have just now to chat a bit about the topics that different people are thinking about. And then we'll get into a few of the technicalities around developing and actioning an emphatic talk. And then I'm going to show a framework that we use with the high school students that we take on this process called Recognize, Analyze, and Reimagine. It's just a kind of process to help you work through your topic and build it into something that you can present to other people. And then we'll talk a little bit about also the technicalities of how to structure your talk. So Yes, I do want to say up front as well, this is not a hard and fast thing that you need to stick to every single step. It's just supposed to be giving you tools to be able to think with, to deepen your thinking. And so feel free to take what is helpful to you. Everyone speaks with their own style. Everyone has their different way of doing things. And so we're not trying to put anyone into a box. So take what's helpful and leave things that are not helpful for you. But I hope that it will give you some tools to be able to do some work with what you want to say. So we are going to start by breaking out into groups of 4 people each. And in these groups, I'm just going to write it in the chat. I want you to briefly introduce yourselves to one another, say where you're coming from, what your context is, and share a little bit of an overview of a topic or the topic that you're interested in developing a talk on. So we're going to be in those groups for 10 minutes. So just be a bit mindful of time and make sure that everyone has a chance to share. So give each person about just over 2 minutes. But yes. Go ahead, for whoever is breaking us into groups, you can do that now. Are starting to come back. Let's just wait until everyone is back in the main room. All right, I think that everybody is back with us in the main session. I hope that was a good, I hope it was good to hear what different people are thinking about in their different contexts. And I hope that that has been inspiring in pushing you to create your own talk and develop that. So I am just going to share my screen with you now. Okay. I hope that that is showing. Okay. I can't see myself, so I hope everything is all right. So we're going to go into a little bit of the emphatic talk technicalities. And this just to say, I'm going to give a bit of an overview here, but Micah Global has developed a resource, a document that has all of these details on them. So if you forget some of these details, that's completely fine. They're all in this document, which I think will be shared in the chat at some point at some point in this workshop.
Is it
okay,
better?
sorry.
It was a bit tricky to see a few minutes ago, but it looks a bit clearer now. Can everyone read the text?
Okay, it's cleared up a bit.
Oh, yeah, it's clear.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Let me know if there's any problems coming up. Okay, but let's get into this. So as Linda has said, the M.Phatics are envisioned as short talks that inspire, challenge, and change. So they are supposed to be no longer than 10 minutes and no shorter than 3 minutes. So try and pitch your talk somewhere between 3 and 10 minutes, and think of them as similar to TED Talks. So they're not long enough to be able to give a comprehensive, in-depth exploration of a particular issue, but they're supposed to be enough to give people a taste, to give people a glimpse into what you're thinking, into the issue you're dealing with, and to inspire people, to give people something to go away with, some point of action or something that they can think differently about. If you're going to type up your full talk and read it from notes, then just to know that 10 minutes is usually equal to 1,000 to 1,500 words. So you can kind of gauge the length through that. The videos should be recorded in MP4 format. And your recording options, you can do it from your phone. If you have a camera, you can do it from your camera. You can even do it via a Zoom meeting. And I assume that you all have access to Zoom because you're on this meeting. So what you do is just set up a meeting for yourself, go into it and record, and then you can do your talk like that and record it. So think of a good title and a subtitle. The title can be as creative as you like. It doesn't have to necessarily give a clear overview of what the topic is, but if you do it like that, then make sure that your subtitle gives kind of a clear overview of your topic and where you're going in your talk, so that people can, when they look at it, when they see the title and the subtitle, they know what they're getting into. But feel free to be flexible and experiment with your title. And then you're going to need to, along with the video, send a photograph and a bio, which just gives a bit of an overview of who you are, the context you're coming from, some of the things you're involved in, and whatever else you would like people to know, so that when people are looking through the talks, they know a little bit about you. And then you'll send to Linda at Micah Global via WeTransfer or Google Drive or OneDrive. And if you are submitting a talk for the Kushamiri consultation, which Deborah mentioned, then the deadline for that is the 13th of August. Then a little bit, a little bit about the filming technicalities and the things that you will need to consider. Some of us are not used to doing talks over film and having to pre-record these things because we are all kind of getting into this technological world that we've been thrust into with COVID. So it's not a natural space for all of us. So just some considerations to think about as you go about preparing and as you go about filming. So think about the lighting. Light shouldn't be coming from behind you because then your face won't be clear. So try and get the lighting to be coming from in front of the camera or in front of the phone, lighting up your face. Think about things like noise. Try and film somewhere quiet where there's as little background noise as possible, so that there's no distractions and so that your talk can be heard clearly. In terms of the phone or the camera orientation, the phone should be held horizontally, so in landscape mode. And then think about the steadiness of the phone camera. So if you have access to a tripod that you can put it on, that would be great, but otherwise you can put it on a table and lean it against some books, things like that, just to make sure that it's not shaking. And then in terms of the background, try and position yourself against a background that is not too busy. Quite a plain background is the best, so that you are the focus of the video and people can see you clearly. In that, think about things like the clothes that you're wearing. Try and not let them blend too much into the background so that you stand out. Also think about things of visibility. And then video quality, this is a bit technical, but it should be 720 pixels or higher, ideally 1080. And then your distance from your camera, you want to think about, because you want your head and part of your torso. So it shouldn't be your whole body, but it shouldn't just be your head as well. So think about your distance. And then lastly, just to give it a test run or a couple of test runs so that you can check things like lighting, so that you can check your timing, how long your talk actually comes out as when you film it. And different things that are involved. Make sure the volume is right, make sure it's clear for people to hear, and all of those kinds of things. But all of these details, again, are in the document that will be sent out to you. or that might be in the chat. So this idea of sites of struggle, I just wanted to kind of introduce this as we get into kind of the deeper look at the issue that we're dealing with. So this idea of sites of struggle has been really helpful to me. And it was a term that was used a lot within the church in the anti-apartheid movement. So before 1994 in South Africa. So this idea of the site of struggle was used to describe the church. The church was seen as a site of struggle. The Bible was seen as a site of struggle. Theology was seen as a site of struggle. And basically what this was saying was that there's no straightforward or neutral theology. There's always power involved. There's always different angles that can be taken depending on where your interests lie, where power lies. So an example of this is within the apartheid era, the kind of theologies that were emerging in South Africa were very oppositional. So you had the Dutch Reformed Church, which had a theology that upheld the apartheid system, that justified, that spiritually justified the racist policy and legislation that was perpetuated by the apartheid government. But then you also had a theology that was pushing for resistance to this and liberation from the apartheid regime. So this struggle exists within all of these different spheres, within our theology, within the church. Nothing is neutral. So I think this has been a really important kind of concept to me to help me think critically about the different things that I'm engaging with, the different issues that I'm seeing, the different kind of interpretations that people are giving about a certain issue, because it helps you ask the question of who is this, whose interests are being supported by the way this is interpreted, and whose interests are being kind of pushed to the side or marginalized. So I invite you to think about your emphatic topics as sites of struggle. So the topic that you are thinking about, that you're passionate about, there's different ways to look at it. Education, if you're interested in education, education is a site of struggle. It's not neutral. Education can be empowering and can be resistance to the status quo, but it can also perpetuate injustice and oppression. So this is an invitation to lean in and dig deeper and explore these topics a little bit more. So as Linda said, I do a bit of work with an organization called Bottom Up, and one of the programs that they run that I'm involved in is called Speak Up. And it's a public speaking program for high school students that mostly live in the Cape Flats from under-resourced schools. So I recognize that the Cape Town context is not everyone's context. And so some of the things that might not hold a lot of relevance or weight for you, but basically they work with schools that are low economically resourced, and schools that don't have a lot of teachers compared to the students, that don't have extra resources, can't get extra teachers. And we try to, in the Speak Up workshops, we try to get students to identify issues that they are passionate about, and really do the work of digging deeper into these issues and preparing them to be able to actually speak up for change. So we take them on a process called Recognize, Analyze, Reimagine. And if people have heard of the Praxis cycle, it's kind of an iteration of the Praxis cycle, allows for some kind of thinking and action and reflection. So the first step is to recognize, and then we analyze, go deeper into the problem, and then we reimagine. We imagine what the world could look like if things were different. So I'm going to explore each of those a little bit further. Okay, so the first one, recognize. So in this, we obviously have the topic that we are wanting to work with. And so the question that we're asking and exploring in this step is, what's the problem? What is this problem that we have identified? And can we get a greater understanding of what this problem is, what it looks like, what the different facets of it are, and how it is playing out within the context that we're looking at. So in this step, really, we are wanting to gather information. So we're wanting to see what the impact of this problem is, what's going on. And so this could look like observation within our own context, within our own experience. We are looking at what is going on around us. We're purposefully observing the different dynamics that are at play and some of what's happening around. We can do more of this through interviews, so maybe speaking to different people who are affected by this problem in different ways, or maybe stand on different sides of this problem. We can ask them what their experiences are, how the problem is expressing itself for them. And then also we can read more about this problem. We can look at news articles, we can look at different reports. So you might want to find out some of the statistics around this problem. So Holland and Henriot, two scholars, came up with this thing called the pastoral cycle. And again, it situates itself within this idea of praxis, so action and reflection. But this phase would really be what they call the insertion phase, where they immerse themselves, you immerse yourself into the issue that you are trying to delve into, so that you can get a clearer understanding of what's going on and what different dynamics are at play. So as maybe an example that we can think about. So I spend a lot of time thinking about the church, and I imagine that all of us spend a fair amount of time thinking about the church, because we are all, I guess, either working from the church or working with the church, or the church is kind of a foundation for some of the things that we're doing. So recently, you might have seen that we've had unrest in South Africa, and it's very layered what's been going on. But there's different narratives around it. So something that I might be interested in is what is the church doing within this period of unrest? Because it feels like not much is happening. So that might be the issue that I identify. Where is the church? I don't see the church present or leading within what's going on in the country right now. So to kind of narrow this down and to develop my understanding of this issue, I would need to look and read to see what I can find about where the church is showing up in this issue, how it's engaging with this issue. Another thing that I might have to deal with is, I'm talking about the church, but the church is an extremely broad way to describe this very varied and different body. So I might have to then start refining my definition, refining how I'm seeing the problem, and maybe talk about specific churches and the way that they are engaging with this problem. So I think also importantly is to kind of hold your topic slightly loosely, or hold your understanding of the problem loosely, so that the things that you can find out can actually help you shape how you've identified your problem, how you've understood your problem. So I am going to give 5 minutes for everyone, where everyone can maybe spend a bit of time thinking about the issue that you've identified, and doing the work of recognize. So whatever that looks like, maybe you want to write some things down, Maybe you want to do a bit of brainstorming around the topic. Maybe you want to look something up online. But I'm going to give 5 minutes for us to do that, so that you can actually take a bit of time to go a little deeper into that. And then we'll come back. And I'm just going to play a song over those 5 minutes that you can work to. So let me share my screen again. And I will tell you when to come back. Great. I hope that was a useful time. Please, would you mind sharing my screen? So hopefully, so one of the team is going to share, I mean, not share my screen, but share the presentation. So hopefully it will be a little bit clearer. Okay, so I don't know if you can make it full screen. Okay, that's fine. I hope everyone can see that. Perfect. Thank you. So we've recognized the problem, what the problem looks like, maybe refined the problem, and we've done that work a little bit, maybe read a little bit more around it, found out the extent of the problem, where it is, where it's not, that kind of thing. So the next step then is to analyze the problem. And some of the questions that we're asking in our analysis, so here really we're trying to get a deeper understanding of what's going on. Why does this problem exist? What factors are contributing to it? What's going on? What's creating the space for this problem to exist? So I'm not sure if you're seeing the same thing as I'm seeing, but on my screen there's something blocking something out. So I will tell you what's going on there. So in this stage of analysis, I just want to give you a few different tools that we use when we do this process with the students that we work with. And there's many other tools out there that you can use. I hope I found these helpful in my own work, and I hope you'll find them helpful too. So the first one is called the 5 whys, and it's really as simple as it sounds. We'll go into all of these a little bit more in the next slide. Then Bronfenbrenner's sociological model. So Bronfenbrenner is a sociologist and has a difficult name to pronounce sometimes. And then lastly, we'll look at the problem tree, which is quite a common tool that people use to analyze different problems. Could you go forward to the next slide, please? Okay, so these are these tools that I've just spoken about now. So the 5 whys, I mean, it really is exactly what it sounds like. Really, first of all, the first step is to identify the problem, what the issue is, which we've already done in step 1. And then you really just ask why and keep on asking why until you get to some kind of a root cause. So as an example that I've been using, so if we're talking about the church's response, let's just say the church's response to what's been going on in the current South African context is insufficient. Let's just say that is how I've identified the problem in kind of reading a little bit more, in looking a little bit more. So I might want to ask why. So why is the church's response insufficient? And I think this can really lead you, it can lead you down multiple pathways. So often it's not as straightforward and as linear as just asking why 5 times and getting to a root cause. But I think it can help in kind of mapping out a broader context of the problem, of the different factors that are involved and the different things that are contributing to the problem, the different things that are going on. So I think feel free to take it where it leads you. You can get lost in rabbit holes, so maybe use the definition of your problem to kind of guide the process. But so I might ask, so why has the church had an inadequate response? And some of the responses that I've read from different churches might have framed the issue in a particular way, a problematic way. And so I start to ask, what is this being informed by? So why is this going on? So maybe it's because their theology does not actually equip them with the tools necessary to actually do a deep contextual analysis to kind of analyze what's going on. Why? And then you can ask, why is this? Why does the theology not give tools to do a good analysis? And you might say, because a lot of the spirituality in different churches is really geared towards maybe very spiritual concepts that don't actually have relevance or outworking within the material context that we find ourselves in. So a lot of our theology might be geared towards an afterlife and not really geared towards understanding a picture of where we're at right now and kind of the material realities that we find ourselves in. And I think as Micah members and people who are engaging in this, a big part of what we speak about and what we try to live out is this idea of integral mission. So a faith that is actually speaking to the material realities that we find ourselves in. So I think this actually might be an issue for many of us, that many of us are grappling with, that we are finding in the church. So then we might ask, okay, so why is this happening? Why is our theology geared towards an afterlife? And I mean, this could be rooted in many different things. You could start to think about who actually benefits from that kind of a theology. And I guess people who benefit are people who are whose interests are in the status quo being upheld. So people who actually benefit from the current material system that we find ourselves in. And the people who are disadvantaged by such a theology are the people that are vulnerable and marginalized within the system. And then we ask ourselves, who are the ones who are kind of developing theology and the ones writing the books that we're reading. And these might be the same people who are benefiting from the current status quo. So they might actually not have the lenses to see things differently. So, I mean, that's just kind of a bit of an example. You can follow that and keep asking why until you get to a wider understanding of what's going on. Then in the middle, you've got this image. Okay, here we go. Okay, so in the middle, you've got this image. This is Bronfenbrenner's sociological model, and basically is just a kind of tool that we can use to help us think about the issue, not as compartmentalized, but as part of these wider systems and structures, and being influenced and influencing these systems and structures. So I'm sorry it's so small. I don't know if you can actually see that, but it talks about these four different levels of systems. So you've got the microsystem in the middle, the mesosystem, the exosystem, and the macrosystem. In the microsystem, you've got things like the individual, the family, the school, the neighborhood. In the mesosystem, you might have institutions like the local church, local businesses, things like that. The exosystem, you've got your works and social services, family and friends. And then the microsystem are really the big systems and structures and even ideas and values and ideology that is kind of holding this whole thing together. So talks about social, cultural and historical influence. This could also be the laws and legislation that are in place, the policies that are in place that have impact on the issue that you're thinking about, the economic model and system that is present within the context. So of course, even if our issue is situated, so let's think about the church, for example, this example of churches and their response to various contexts and various things that are going on. The church might be located as an institution within the mesosystem, but we don't want to look at that separated from these other systems that are influencing it. So the church is influenced by individuals and families. We might want to think about how that's happening. So of course, different individuals attend church. A lot of the time, churches are funded by individuals, and so different individuals might hold sway over how a church responds or what happens. So we can think about things like that, how the microsystem is influencing what's happening there. And then also the exosystem, the larger system, and the macro system. So being situated within a context where there's different values like individualism. Individualism is a big value that holds up or that is integral to the system we find ourselves in, that has so much influence on the different things that we do. And I think a lot of the time is quite oppositional to what we believe as Christians and the work that we're trying to do as Christians. And so you have to think about how these values are influencing what's going on, how the different policies in place are influencing what's going on. And then lastly, so the problem tree is not necessarily situated just within analysis. I think it also can be, as we look at symptoms, it can be, we can use it in our recognition as well. So in the first phase. But the problem tree, what it does is to try and give an image of what the problem looks like in terms of what we can see, which is the symptoms and the problem itself, but then what's underneath it. So the roots of the tree, what are the root causes that are actually feeding into this and holding up this issue? Because a lot of the time, what we do is we cut off the leaves and we think that the problem's gone away, but the roots are still feeding into this problem. And if we're not addressing these roots, then we actually can't address the problem fully. So this just gives a kind of lens or a framework to be able to do the work of identifying the different causes that are at play that are holding up this problem. Okay, so I'm going to give another about 5 minutes to just work on that yourself. So I'm going to share my screen and put on the music again, put on the same song. But yes, feel free to use whatever tool you think might be helpful to you. You can brainstorm it just to try and analyze the problem that you're working with in a greater way. We should come back.
Swallowed by enormity, they walk down.
Great. Okay, cool. Then if you could share the reimagine slide now. So we have recognized our problem, done a bit of research about what's going on, and we've asked the why question and tried to get an understanding of some of the things that are feeding into this thing, some of the root causes of this issue. And now this is maybe my favorite part of this process, reimagine. And in this stage, we ask the question, what could it look like if things were different? And this is one of my favorite quotes by the historian Robin Kelly. And he says, trying to envision somewhere in advance of nowhere, as poet Jane Cortez puts it, is an extremely difficult task, yet it is a matter of great urgency. Without new visions, we don't know what to build, only what to knock down. And I think this maybe is something that we need to take more seriously, this idea of painting a picture of the world that we are trying to live towards, that the world that we want to be creating and to be building. Because sometimes it's easy to do the work of critiquing and to recognize what's wrong and what needs to change, but it's not necessarily as easy to imagine how things could be if they were different. And I think what's important here, it's not just imagination for the sake of imagination and imagination without feet, but I think reimagining what could be actually gives us some direction to work towards. It actually informs the action that we can take. So it's not imagining without action, but I think these things go hand in hand. So in this, maybe using my example, and I think here you can be as creative as you like, but really the I think the vision of this piece is to give the audience a glimpse of how things could be if they look different, like why we should be addressing this issue at all. If we can build something, an incredible vision of what we're working towards, I think there can be so much more buy-in by people. So maybe in my example, in the case study that I've been using of the church having an inadequate response to what's been going on in our context, maybe my reimagining would be a church that is first to respond, that is right in there, that has the skills to be able to analyze what's going on and to actually be the one to set the tone and to actually frame the narrative, and that these narratives would be framed within an understanding that every single human being is created in the image of God, and that our heart as Christians, as Jesus followers, is to work towards a world in which everyone has what they need, in which everyone gets to live out their full potential, and that the church would be central to this mission and to this vision. So that might be a bit of what I would want to paint a picture of in reimagining how this could look. And so I want to give you a few minutes again to do this work and be creative as creative as you like. I think here you might want to paint a picture with your words in your talk of how things could be. You might want to show an image. You might want to say a poem. You can do it in all kinds of ways. So maybe just use the next few minutes to do the work of imagining what you would like things to look like, and maybe think about how you could convey that within your talk. Okay, so that will be for the next 5 minutes, and then we'll come back for the last pieces. Okay, great. If the structure slide could be shared. Okay, so we have gone on the process of recognizing, analyzing, and reimagining the problem. And if you could go to the next slide, I'm just gonna speak briefly to the structure of the talk. And I think these are basics, and I'm sure you all know of them, but just a kind of reminder. And again, I just want to emphasize that these things are not to box you or limit you. There is room to experiment and to have your own style and your own expression within this. So use them as tools as they are helpful, but also feel free for your own expression to come through in this. So the basic structure of a talk. So begin with an introduction, and basically what this is trying to do is trying to capture the audience's attention, draw them into what you're trying to say, kind of pique their interest, hook them in, and then also to set their expectations for the journey ahead. So you'll also want to give them a little bit of an overview or a pathway of where you're going in the talk. And to get the attention of an audience, people use different tools. Some people start with a very provoking question that really kind of captures people or meets them where they're at, or presents them with something that they need to grapple with. A lot of people start with a personal story, personal or not necessarily personal, but a story that can really, I guess, capture people's emotions and allow people to situate themselves within whatever it is that you're talking about, so that you really draw them in. Some people use various quotes to begin with, which kind of, yeah, draw people in, give people an overview of what you're trying to say or where you're going. So basically that's the idea of your introduction. You can play around with how long it should be, but it shouldn't be the bulk of your speech. So the body, which is kind of where you flesh out your arguments and your points and what you're trying to say, that should be the bulk. And they are just kind of sandwiched by the introduction and the conclusion. So your introduction has given people a roadmap of where you're going. It's drawn people in. In your body, you get to flesh out the different points that you want to make. So often, I think a good thing to do for anyone is to kind of be able to, in maybe a sentence or two, say what it is that you are trying to say in your talk and what you want people to take away. I think if you can do that, then you have a good idea of where you're going. So then your body needs to speak to this. I think a lot of people work with having 3 points, identify the 3 points that you're going to make, and make sure that you're covering them all and providing the fleshing out that's needed. But I mean, that's definitely up to you and your topic and what's relevant. But in your body, make sure that you are really kind of providing the argument that's going to bring people into this. I mean, I think with the M.Phatics, different people are doing different things. So some people could be talking about the history of an organization rather than talking about a specific issue. So you'll want to really tailor this to the topic that you are trying to speak about. And then lastly, your conclusion. And the goal of this is really to leave the audience with something that they can take away, that they won't forget, and to also remind them of the main ideas that you've shared, to reiterate things, and to end on a powerful note so that they can't forget what you've said, so that this talk will stick in their mind. And some of the tools to do this can, again, be a question to chew on, a call to action, I think really with the M.Phatics, because the goal is to challenge, to inspire, to change. I think this idea of a call to action is a really important one. So whether it's something that you want your audience to do in response to the talk that you've shared with them, or whether it's a way that you want your audience to think differently about something, I think even if you don't necessarily say it in the conclusion, but think about whether your talk is actually doing that. What is it changing in the audience? What action will they be taking because of it? What way will they think differently, or do you hope to make them think differently because of it? Or you can leave them with a quote. There's various ways to do this, a poem, various things. So feel free, I think, to tailor that to what you need. But I think the kind of structure, having some kind of a structure, is important in kind of bringing people in. I think Linda gave the analogy of a corridor. So your introduction is opening the door and inviting people in, and then you're taking them through this corridor to a specific place. And that's where you're kind of leaving them at the end of your talk. Okay, that is all from me, and we wanted to leave a bit of time for question and answers. I hope you liked my little bitmoji of myself. But if you have any questions, then please feel free to share them now. You can put your hand up, and maybe we can stop sharing screen so that we can see everyone. The mic is great.
I have a question around well, two things. The one is, do you have any tips around nerves and how to not rush? Because it's I often speak very fast when I'm anxious, and so I wondered if you had any tips around that. And then also the fear of it not being perfect often stops people from doing it. And so if you've got anything about that.
Yes, such good questions. I think so. I mean, what we tell the students that we work with, I mean, firstly, we just say practice, practice, practice. The more that you actually speak, whether it's in front of the mirror, in front of no one, or it's using your family as an audience to test things on, or your friends. I think the more that you actually speak and become comfortable with what you have to say, that helps with nerves. I mean, it doesn't necessarily fix it, but I think also, I mean, I think that phrase that a lot of people quote is fake it until you make it. And I think that honestly in speaking sometimes really does help. You just have to fake your confidence, and I think as you do that, it flows. I think it's an interesting dynamic with with pre-recording videos as well, because I think what you said secondly, Linda, I think can also get us stuck on that. So I had to film something for a conference earlier this year, and when you're speaking at a conference, I mean, there's no way you get everything perfect. There's probably going to be an or an somewhere in there, but I mean, there we go. But I think when we're pre-recording a video, you can want it to be so perfect that also becomes quite paralyzing and might take you like days or months to be able to perfect this video. So I think maybe, I mean, you would want to maybe practice it a couple of times and try to get it as good as possible. Like, that's great. But I think forgive yourself the minor imperfections. Really, we want to hear we want to hear your perspective. We want to hear your thinking. We want to hear how the issue is happening in your context and what kind of things it's affecting. So I think really in this context of Micah Global, I think it's such an incredible platform, because there's people from all around the world who are maybe experiencing similar issues, but in very different ways, and expressing themselves very differently within your context. So I think be really confident in that you are presenting something that we probably haven't seen before, or at least haven't seen in the way that you are going to be looking at it and presenting it. So I think come at your talk like that. You are the expert in your context. You are the expert in seeing this thing through your eyes, and you have something to say that we are all going to benefit from. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. Does anyone else have any questions? I will say again, point you towards that guidelines document that's in the chat. All the technicalities and overview of the vision of the M.Phatics is in there. So do go through that as well. I'll give another minute just for any questions, anyone who's thinking about anything or would like to.
Thandi, I've got a question. I tend to kind of probably overthink things a bit. So if I'm preparing a talk, I sit down and I write it out, kind of word perfect, and I choose every word and I'm happy with it. But then I've got to articulate it. And I quite often struggle between reading it or feeling that I haven't done justice to what I've written. And sometimes I think the best way that I speak is when I just have bullet points almost that I speak to. So how do you find that balance of kind of scripting something versus speaking it and making it spontaneous without, learning it word for word? Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think that's something that I've also definitely grappled with. And so here I would say, there's flexibility depending on what works for you, because I think for some people, they feel much more confident when they have it all written out and when they can read it. And I think in that case, feel free to do that, but try and read in an engaging way where you are looking at the camera, so that the audience feels that you're engaging with them. And maybe the way to do that is to practice it quite a lot before, so that you can look up quite a bit while you're doing it. But I agree that I think for myself, and maybe I don't think I was always like this, I think I used to very much like to have everything written down. But these days, I actually prefer to have the bullet points, even though having it written down kind of calms my nerves a bit. But with me, and in my experience, it makes me feel extremely tied to the paper and to the words that I've written and to getting everything right. And so it feels like I don't feel like I can necessarily be fully present to go where the moment is leading and to deviate from what's on the paper. So for me, I like to now do it in bullets, and then also practice a lot before, so that you do know where you're going with each point and what you're trying to say. I don't know if that's helpful, because I think it really does depend on what's comfortable for you and your own style. But that's what I found for myself.
Thanks, Thandi.
Okay, great. If there's not any other questions, then I am going to hand over to Linda to close us off. But thank you so much all for being present here. I'm really excited for what's going to come out of this and to listen to what different people have to say. Yeah, so thank you for having me.
Thandi, thank you so much. I learned so much just from this hour and a half. Thank you for sharing such practical help with us, and also the ideology around reimagining was really helpful. Often we can see what's wrong, but to see what it could look like is such an invitation. So much often missed by not doing that. So thank you for reminding us to reimagine and to build. And I really hope, I can't wait to listen to the talks that come out of this time. We have recorded it to pass it on to people. I will email you all the guidelines afterwards in case you've missed it in the chat. So you'll each get a copy, a link to the guidelines. But just to say thank you, Thandi, thank you to everyone who came. And please register for Kushamiri. We'll put that in the chat to register, get onto the app that we'll be using, and then load up your talk and go for it. The sooner they're up, the more people can start listening. There's one up there at the moment. The first one came in and it's 3 minutes. So powerful, really powerful invitation. So thanks so much again. And if anyone has any questions, please drop us an email. There's the register link in the chat. Tess has just put the chat there. So please register as soon as you can so we can listen to your talks before, during, and after Kushamiri. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
He is moving with the love so deep. Heart